Certainly there are many ways to play Battletech, and this is true of most war games outside of historical wargaming. This idea of the list, the build, the type of units that you select. And in Battletech, we can go pure mechs, we can do combined arms. We could. Problem with Battletech is I never have enough battle value. I want to do mechs, I want to do vehicles, I want to do air support, I want to do artillery, I want to do infantry. But you could, and there have been a few games where I've played pure tanks and infantry, zero mechs. And if we look at the Battletech universe, mechs still are pretty rare. There are a number of engagements on border worlds or garrisons where all they have are tanks and infantry, some very advanced, going up against mechs. So within that framework, lots of different ways to build your list, and most of us use Battlevalue. I pushed up to the Battletech archive here last week, looking at Battlevalue, C-bills, tonnage, different ways to play the game and build the lands. So within that framework, there's also this idea you can build a very, very ruthless and efficient meta-type list, meaning I'm only going to take the absolute best in Battletech, obviously outside of a campaign or maybe an RPG. And then all the way on the opposite side, the narrative list where you take a bunch of cool stuff, experimental stuff, odd stuff. I think many of us, maybe you're a little bit in the middle. You know, you've got a solid lance, you've got some solid builds, but you'll throw a couple of hundred or 1,000 battle value at some weird and wacky stuff because there's a lot of great, really, really interesting and fun stuff in Battletech that we want to play. And of course, it's an excuse to acquire, purchase, build, print more and more miniatures. So that cycle of funness within that. So within that framework, looking at a very, very efficient way of building, almost like tournament, almost competitive play. And even if you don't agree or this isn't your primary way of playing a war game, we need to be aware of it. We need to be aware of it because one of the things as we venture out in Battletech land, but also wargaming land, if you're new, is as you develop your proficiency of the rules and list building and your player personality, the type of stuff that you like to play and how to play it, we want to be aware of other styles because otherwise you might not be able to come up with a counter or you might just get crushed and not know it. An example, I'm going to sidebar for a moment because this framework is important. I was playing a Warhammer 40,000 game. It's a pickup game. You go to the club and you just kind of meet someone or hang out. Someone comes up, hey, do you want to play a game? I mean, you can also schedule games and there's your regular friends that you play with. But the idea is to experience different armies and play with other 40K enthusiasts. So I'm playing 40K. I've got my Necrons and this other player comes up and is like, hey, Fritz, let's play a game of 40K. Absolutely. So they're pulling out their army and they're pulling out their list. And my Necron list at this point, I mean, I do have a very competitive Necron list. And then I've got kind of my just experimental, cool, odd stuff that I like to play. That was the list that I brought. Very narrative type list. And this other player is pulling out their list, pulling out their army. And I'm looking at it and saying, okay, this is a pure meta tournament list. This is all it's focused on. It is ruthless. It is spammed out. It's in triplicate, all that type of stuff. And the player, he's like, you know, this is just like my hobby list. I wanted to try out some new stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, bro, I can see your list. I'm aware of what this is. Just say what it is. Are you afraid people aren't going to want to play you because it's a really cheesy list? Like, I'll play. It's no problem, right? We're here to roll some dice, have some fun. Let's just call it what it is. Or are you trying to like push it in a certain direction? So they kept on insisting this is a hobby list. No. I got crushed in the game. Now, Warhammer 40K, there's zero balance. It's very swingy. It's a completely different type of focus. But what that has to do with a Battletech vlog video, excuse me, is the idea that you have to be aware of certain fundamentals in Battletech. If you're not, you can go in with one particular build and it doesn't work or it gets crushed against another build. And you're like, what the heck's going on? Is it me? No, understanding the meta. All right, we've got that framework. So at a certain point in lower battle value games, you can spread yourself too thin by taking very, very expensive units, right? Let's look at the awesome mech. Love playing it. Let's look at the Atlas. Very, very powerful machines. Very powerful. Won't dispute that. Kings of the battlefield. Everyone wants to be an assault mech. All you got to do is like show up and stand around and like you win the day, in the narrative. So, or you like stand guard in some throne room all day just for, the aura. Like absolutely fantastic. But in a low battle value game, if you bring that machine, you can't be everywhere on the hex map. You can't cover all your bases. It's easy for your opponent to fade, to not be around, to minimize and run and gun, just not to be standing there in front of you. It's not worth the battle value. Certain machines, certain tanks, not going to take a behemoth tank in a low battle value game. First of all, it's so slow I'll never get there, but it's like the equivalent of 2 lances in one unit, occupying one hex on the hex map, radiating out the area of fire and firing arcs, but it's one thing. Now, I'm not saying like, look, never take expensive stuff and just go really, really cheap. Actually, I've got 50 Scorpion tanks I could sell you right now. I've got some Mercs ready to work cheap. They're mainly pulled from the ranks of the dispossessed. Given a short-range missile launcher, single shot, one tube, going to battle, let's do this, right? 500 C-bills, it's yours. Well, actually, but from that perspective, don't play cheap. Inexpensive units, have a balance, but based on the size of the game, you need to be aware of that sliding scale, because at a certain point, things get too expensive. You can't be anywhere, and you're going to get crushed because you can't cover the mission objectives. You can't destroy the other units. And that one super powerful mech, I'll run away from your Atlas, your Cyclops all day. Now, what that scale is, you've got to look and experiment with that, because are we talking about just mechs? Are we talking about adding in combined arms, tanks, and infantry? Are we talking about air support? Also, some missions are lower battle value, some are higher battle value, right? Some are a little bit skewed. Attacker versus defender. Usually the attacker has more battle value because the defender has a fortified area on the map, or at least gets to pick full deployment of where they want to be, which is like a force multiplier. That might be worth 500. That might be worth 1,000, 1,500 battle value to throw up a nice little castled up fortification type system, bunker, mines, buildings, stuff like that. Put some areas with infantry in, heavy cover. That's a huge magnifier. So it's not always just 100K versus 100K battle value and pushing it from that perspective. So understanding that when you build your list and you're selecting your units, what is the battle value? What is the size of the game? What is the mission? And make sure you're not going too high, too much, or if you are, sometimes I've done that. If you are, then realize you might not be able to cover these areas. What is your counter? What is your plan? What is your awareness for that?